Or my Internet Explorer crashed for some reason.
I have it now streaming live on my end.
We are good. Yes.
Okay. We're
I'm
good
not
to go.
seeing Tom Pelican. I see his box and his name in it, but I don't see him. Oh, there you are. You got your two boxes over here. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, there I
There
am.
you go. Which box
Oh,
are you
yeah.
in?
A lot of importance.
So are you signed in twice, Tom?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
because
had
we will
trouble
get that echo.
I had trouble. Oh,
You have
So
to
how do
sign
I-
off on one.
okay.
Yeah.
How do I sign off on it?
I think you signed off on your one that you had video. And so are you doing that, your other one through your phone?
No,
If-
no.
Okay. Well, you got one with audio.
Okay, can you hear me now?
It can hear you, but you have no video.
Okay. Let's see. Start video.
Moved one of you to the waiting room.
Hey, there you are. Okay.
Hold
you're
on, I
good.
mean. Oh shit. Okay, there I am. Sorry, folks.
It's okay.
This isn't Twilight Zone, is it, by any
You know.
chance?
Oh, there, we might be good to go.
Can you unmute yourself, Tom?
Just think someday we can have a live meeting.
I just asked about that prior to this meeting.
Actually, Parks and Trails is meeting tonight.
That's got
Outside,
Okay.
outside.
Okay.
Tom,
Better
did
tomorrow.
you send over a test and just say hello?
Hello.
Okay,
I'm
I
on.
think we're officially good to go.
Good.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. Welcome to the Public Works Commission meeting tonight, Monday, April 19th. Before we go ahead and officially get started, Tim, I think the number one question for you is, are you going to be shoveling snow tomorrow or not?
It's going to snow, but we're not going to be doing anything. It's
Yeah.
Small accumulation?
Ground's going to be warm enough. It's just going to do enough to damage your plants that are all coming up and be nice and healthy.
Right.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and officially get started and stay on topic, on point. So hopefully we can end on time and everyone can enjoy this beautiful evening, or what's left of it after 5:30. So Tim, did you take the roll call?
I do. We have everyone in attendance other than Commissioner Chow.
And did he indicate he was going to be absent this evening?
He emailed me this morning and said that he was not going to be able to
Okay.
attend, but could get on via phone if need be for a quorum. And I said we had enough.
Right. Okay.
numbers to attend.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. The minutes to Tuesday, February 16th meeting was emailed out to the commission. I trust everyone received those, had time to review. Are there any corrections or amendment to those minutes as written? I'm seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written for the Tuesday, February 16th meeting? Mr. Tarlis. Is that your first? And
Move for
Tom
approval.
Pelican is seconding.
Second.
I didn't know if that was a question or if you were.
I was just
Okay.
waving to you, Pam.
Okay. So the minutes are approved as written. And Tim, I'm gonna move on to old business. We have no old business items this evening, so we are on to the topic of new business. We have 3 items. We're going to talk about asphalt contract and some stormwater maintenance projects. So the first item on our agenda is the 2021 asphalt pavement program. Prior to Tim taking the floor and discussing that with you all, I just did want to remind all of you that our Planning and Zoning Commission recently adopted our comprehensive plan, our 2020 comprehensive plan. And in that plan, first of all, is our guideline for everything we do in our city for the next couple of decades. And there's a section in there, section 7, that is designated to transportation and roadway, and it speaks to improvement recommendations as we move forward. So in there, you can learn about how many miles of roadway we have, how many of those miles are public, private, or a combination of county and state, what percent is concrete versus asphalt versus overlay, and the recommended improvements. And if you do take the time to look at that, I would have you note that in the recommendation of improvements is that we continue to rank our city streets using the PACER scale, which is, it's a scale that you can Google it online and have a better understanding of it, but it's a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the street fails and really needs improvement, and 10 being in excellent condition. And based on that scale, we make decisions on, are we going to crack seal? Are we going, is this applicable to do some type of level of repair? So when you have the opportunity, please check out our comprehensive plan. It is available on our city's website. Tim, the floor is yours.
Thanks. And Tam's being a little generous, because if your street is a 1 on a PACER rating, basically means you have a gravel road, and it's beyond needing replacement. But real quick too, to touch on some of the projects that we see for some of the newer commission members. Earlier in the year, we've already touched on some building related projects, the PD remodel. So the overall scope of a lot of things this commission will see will be either related to building improvements or upgrades, remodels, building construction of our municipal center or firehouse. In addition to that, most of you have already seen on several scales of our stormwater projects. So we do the stormwater capital improvement projects. We also do stormwater maintenance projects. And then the next thing that we touch on an annual basis is typically our ongoing maintenance contracts. And there's a variety of those, from snow removal to grounds care, on-call engineering, just every service that we basically provide, because we have no in-house staff, we contract. And then our final is our roadway, which is what we're getting into tonight. And there are a couple different methods in which we address our roadway. So we have topping road, which is in process, and that is a federal grant. So that is one of our tools that we use for roadway improvements, is going out for grants. The other tool that we use is our on-call roadway maintenance, and those are typically smaller repair jobs. And then we have our annual, typically our budget annually for either concrete or asphalt work on a somewhat larger scale. Little history for some, but Commissioner Wunderlich and Huff and Tuckett were all on the commission in 2011, 12, 13, when we did a major capital roadway improvement outlay of somewhere in the, I think, $3 million range, or $4 million for our roadway infrastructure. So we try to budget annually to do other roadway improvements. In past years, we've done microsurfacing, which we are trying to steer away from, just because it is a very short-term solution. And what you have in front of us is something that we've used on some of our more heavily traveled roads, like Topping in the past, or Bope, and even on Clayton. And we want to start utilizing those in some of our subdivisions. So we have our 2021 asphalt pavement program, and based off of our PACER rating, my recommendation is going to be for the next 3 years, we focus on asphalt, our asphalt roadways, since there are more that are in worse shape than our concrete roadways. And this is going to be the first year again that we've done contract for it's called a Nova Chip application in subdivisions. So we selected 5 streets based off of square footage and what we had for estimated budget for this ultra thin bond overlay or Nova Chip. And then you'll also see on the street locations is a preservative seal, and that's a Reclamite project. It's basically an asphalt rejuvenation product that will extend the life of newer asphalt treatments. So some of our newer streets that we've taken over and some of our streets that we have recently relayed or overlaid, we're going to recommend that application. So we had budgeted for this project $175,000 for asphalt sealing. Publicly bid. We had 5 contractors that pulled the specifications and only 2 that supplied prices. So the contract for NB West, or the apparent low responsive bidder, is $182,106. So we are looking to approve this contract with 5% contingency. We are not looking for an appropriation at this time, as there is currently enough budgeted in our roadway fund with topping road and other right-of-way maintenance funds that we're going to let the year progress and see what comes in for topping before we have to consider any additional funds in the account.
Tim, I got a question.
Sure.
The Nova Seal I'm familiar with, and as you said, that's sort of a chip overlay. I think they did something similar, the county did, I guess, on Conway a couple of years ago. The sealing, is that similar to what people use on their driveways, or is that more exotic than that?
No, and I wouldn't want I wouldn't want the Nova Chip to be confused with the chip and seal, because those are 2 different applications. So a chip and seal is an asphalt oil that you pour on the street, and then you add aggregate on top of it, and it is typically something that you use in more rural applications. And if you use that or use it in town, we're going to hear from everybody about the rocks hitting on the cars and
Right.
So the Nova Chip or Ultra Bond overlay is essentially similar to a mill and then asphalt overlay that's pressed, but it's a smaller thickness, but still a similar process. The preservative seal is not like a driveway sealer, so it's not like a MAC 51 or something that you're going to use on your driveway, because that product or products like that reduces your traction on roadways, so that if you have rain, snow, or ice, you don't have that friction to grab. The preservative seal is basically an oil that penetrates into the asphalt that makes it less brittle, so it has more. It continues its life, so it has more flexibility in the pavement and is less likely to crack or become brittle and pop.
And so what frequency is that meant to be put down?
So the preservative seal, you want to do that within, it's not necessarily something you should do in like every 5 years or every 10 years. Really what you want to do is you want to apply that preservative seal within the first 3 to 4 years of your asphalt work, to then extend the life. It's not something that you typically would come in and say, I've got a 15-year-old road, I'm going to do a preservative seal again. It's something you want to do up front to add life at the tail end.
Okay. And then
Once
not,
you get,
Hey,
and then
Tim,
not again. You don't need. to do-
what's the curing time on something like that, a preservative seal?
so I think the preservative seal is somewhere in the 30 minutes to an hour, depending on weather. So typically on both applications, they'll be done on one side of the road. And they will rotate to another street or road in the area, giving that side time to cure, and then they'll flip to the other side.
Mark, did you have another question or were you done?
I think I'm done on that. What preservative seal, is there another name for it?
Reclamite.
Reclamate, okay. Thank you.
That the reclamite would be preservative seal is a general title, but the reclamite is a more specific brand or type of
Okay.
seal.
Other questions? I have just a couple. Tim, when do you anticipate this project kicking off? And how long will it take to execute? Is it all in 2021?
Yes, this would all be done in 2021. If we take to the board and receive board approval, we'd then get with NB West to do schedule, but it would likely be June or July start. Hot and dry is typically when you like to do asphalt work. So this is, with good weather, I mean, I would say probably no longer than a week to 2 weeks. So
And then go ahead.
I would say the only other unknown would be is once they get in and start milling, would be as if there's any base repairs that we need to do, and we'd like to try to do that in-house with our on-call contractor,
okay.
just because the price per square yard when you're bidding these out for base repair work is significantly higher than what we would be charged with our on-call contractor.
And you said something that caught my attention. You want to move forward with asphalt for the next 3 years. Did we typically do every other asphalt 1 year, concrete the next, so on and so forth? So is that a new approach?
Yeah, we had in the past years where we would budget 1 year asphalt, 1 year concrete, and with the concrete we'd pick up sidewalks and other curbing that needed to be addressed, as well as slabs. But typically your concrete streets, the life of a concrete street is significantly longer than an asphalt street. So we have several roadways that are starting to wear to a point that if we don't address them quicker than every other year, then we get into a point where we have to do major repairs and or complete reconstructions, and we want to try to get to them and make those repairs before we get to that point.
Have we utilized this vendor in the past? Do you have any information regarding work quality?
So I believe the city has had NB West do work with them in the past. Since I have been here, we have not done a overlay or a Nova chip.
Yes.
So we haven't utilized NB West since 2015 that I'm aware of.
Okay.
In a previous place of employment, we did roughly, for that municipality, we did roughly between $500,000 and $600,000 annually on street reconstruction and overlay. And typically NB West was the lowest responsive bidder. So I've worked with them previously.
So then
Question.
after this first year, they could potentially, if we sign off on this new strategy of going 3 years out, is that something where we could do a longer term contract and rework pricing?
So the only thing that you'd run into is the oil prices, price per barrel. So you would have to do implement an asphalt index that would allow the contractor the flexibility to increase based off of that index. So that otherwise they would be extending themselves out
Right.
and, taking a huge risk of
Mhm.
what happens if price per barrel shoot through the roof. And I've quoted you this price per ton. So, it would still typically be something that we would look at bidding out annually.
Right.
And then, they could give us the best price based off of, but what it does is once you get the contractor in, they perform the work, they understand really what is entailed with traffic control and mobilization, and, whether that cost is going to need to be as high as it needs to be, where the profits are, and they can become a little bit more competitive.
Well, that was going to be my last question before I throw it back to Dave, is that one, we know where all these streets are, and they're not main thoroughfares. So the traffic control number is interesting as compared to the competition, which was higher overall, and then our estimate as well. So is there any opportunity to go back to the company on that number prior to, if this commission recommends this contract, and before you take it to the board to ask that question?
So I would have an issue taking anything that we publicly bid and open sealed bids, and then go back to the contractor and say,
So
okay,
we're unable to do it. Okay.
We put our specifications out there on what our requirements are, and then they put their number to it. So some contractors, and if you're trying to compare apples to apples or look at the spreadsheet, you may see that. Let me pull it up. I think I added the bid tabulation in, and I just got to find what page that's on.
Yeah, I understand where you're going though. I got you.
But here it is. So where the one contractor has their price per square yard is $7.15, which is MB West for the Nova chip. The other contractor has $9, and they put less in traffic control. So where each contractor puts their number at and or wants to put some additional. So NB West may say, okay, our total cost is going to be this, but I know for mobilization and traffic control, I can bill that maybe I'm not going to do one lump sum bill. Maybe I'm going to bill 2 times, and I can bill for mobilization or traffic control up front so that I can get this first payment in to cover some labor costs or whatever.
Gotcha.
So each contractor works differently. And if we're doing sealed bids, I'm not inclined then to go back and try to negotiate a better price based off of their sealed bid.
Thank you. Did our vice chairman have a question or comment?
I need a clarification here. In Thornhill, we use West Contracting. Is that the same company? The guy I work with is a guy named Glenn Dutton.
I don't know if that's the same as NB West or not. I don't know.
Yeah, in Muirfield, we use the same West Contracting. Glenn Dutton was the guy we worked with, and we were pleased with their work.
Are you using, in Muirfield, are you using chip and seal, or
So what we did was we actually did the project last year, and I don't believe it was using that method. In West was they were the lowest bidder. One thing to note though, and I'm not sure if Muirfield is just more narrow than your average street or road, but in terms of just traffic control, the way they did lay down the asphalt, they did it across the entire street. So it wasn't like they did just one lane one day and they always left the lane open. There were times during the several day project where, the main artery of in and out of the neighborhood was shut off. So there were some downtimes. I'm not sure if this group is going to use the same method, but that is something to note. That was, it was an inconvenience there for a few days where there was definitely in and out of the subdivision. There were limitations on whether or not you could actually get out, which I know that brings up all sorts of considerations for police and fire as well. If, during that time, there is a need there, but, those are just some of the experiences we had last year when we did our reseal.
So I believe that's the same contractor. I think they either go by West or NB West, just from Googling it real quick. But as far as Muirfield goes, that is a very narrow street, and you have the concrete rolled curb and concrete gutter, which then also shrinks the pavement width. So you're really bound by what the paving equipment can do width-wise. And to have a more uniformed appearance, that's probably why they tried to do a single pass through. I don't know that any of the streets that we have listed, you couldn't fit a paver from edge to edge. So you really, you either want to get, maybe squeeze down to at the smallest they can probably get is about 8.5, almost 9 feet in width. To do a single pass. So it was probably something where they were like, okay, well, we would do, if they did one lane in Muirfield, then they would overlap it by about a foot going in the other direction. And it just is not as pleasant of an aesthetic at that point.
Yeah, we knew the risk with, like I said, there were times where just you couldn't pass through because of the fact that it was just one, side to side, all encompassing. But we did like the fact that there was no crack in the middle, or there's no seam in the middle that could eventually turn into a crack. So we figured the short-term inconvenience was worth the longer-term benefit to that.
Sure.
So that's good to learn that 2 of our subdivisions have had positive experience with this vendor.
Mhm.
Dave, did you have another
Well, I
comment?
just want to let everybody know, in Thornhill, we own our streets. We have 2.5 miles of them, and I've lived here 40 years now, and we've done just about everything. We stopped doing major repaving, expensive, and we adopted chip and seal. So Larrett's fixes my potholes, and Glenn Dutton takes care of we accumulate money every year, and after 7 or 8 years, we put another seal on there. And over the years, we've been able to see a definite decline in the base, meaning potholes and stuff like that, and a loss of basic asphalt. And our wear and tear now is, we get good mileage out of the chip and seal. It seems to last forever. So and you can get any width you want. The machinery is capable of doing it. So when we do it, we do both sides at the same time, and you can drive on it. Once they go through it, you can just drive on it right after it. So that seems to work out pretty well for us. And we do it as a cheaper way to maintain our streets than the way we used to do was go ahead and do a major paving job every 10 years. But so I don't know if we shouldn't go ahead and maybe, is familiar with a couple of the people that we're looking at the screen here, bring them to the party and see if maybe it would be, except for the major streets like Clayton Road, Mason and Topping, that the chip and seal may end up being a cost-effective way. And we've test driven it for a long time here now, and we come and take a look at our streets. They were pretty crappy before we got started, but each year they get better and better and better, or each time we do that.
Okay, may I suggest that, because I'd like to add a comment about the Pacer scale as well, but may we push this to a discussion item at the end? And if there aren't any further questions or comment with relation to this contract, I'd like a motion to approve the contract for the 2021 asphalt pavement program.
Second.
So I have Bob first, Kip second. And then Dave, we'll pick this up at the under discussion, item number 6.
Okay.
Because it's a good discussion to have and to plan out how we talk about this going forward. With regard to our streets in total. Okay, Tim, you ready for me to move on to the next?
We got a first and a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Well, the ayes have it. We've been off for over a month. I forgot.
Correct.
Okay, so the ayes have it. So now we're moving on to stormwater maintenance projects, B and C. Tim,
So
you're on.
first B, item B, 14310 Mandalay Woods, was contacted staff regarding a drainage issue. I've added a map, and then the property owner has added or provided some photos of the roadway over the winter and summer. There is several houses with retaining walls, and drainage is all conveyed out onto Mandalay Woods Drive. The property owner has a child with special needs, and that's at the end of the driveway where they access their bus to school. So they reached out requesting some assistance to help with that drainage. So on the same property, there is a storm sewer manhole, and what I am proposing is a infiltration trench, which is basically the blue square to capture that drainage, and then directional boring under the driveway to connect into that structure. These stormwater maintenance projects were, the program was developed to assist property owners in a smaller capacity versus identifying them as a capital project and placing them on our capital program list. So we budget roughly anywhere from 30,000 to 60,000 a year for these stormwater maintenance projects, and then the criteria is there's 4 or 5 trigger points that you would need to meet if it's something that you cannot reasonably address as your own. Which this is connecting into MSD storm sewer structure and crosses right of way and neighboring property, which would trigger the city's involvement.
So of the 30 grand in stormwater maintenance projects this year, just to be clear for all the commission members, those are not reflected on our stormwater page. Those are the massive construction projects that take engineering, construction, and some take a couple of years from start to finish. These, Tim, do you have on an annual basis of this? It looks like the last few years it's been around 30 grand each year. Do you have a master list that you keep track of and then execute as the money's available each year?
So we have not gotten to so typically these are identified on an annual basis, and we typically have the budget annually to address them. So we don't have any pending projects.
You don't, okay.
If we did receive enough inquiry or enough notification of issues that we would exceed the budget, then we would start that list and address them as basically from a time period standpoint versus the capital program that has a larger matrix involved, and it would just be as identified down the line. But to date, we have some years that we've spent very little, others that we spent nearly the full budget amount, and as they're identified, the process is that we get a recommendation to move forward from the Public Works Commission. I then have to go and get at least 3 quotes because of the threshold for these projects are typically they're all under $7,500. That stays in line with our purchasing policy, and then they have to go to the Board of Aldermen for PO approval before we start the work. So we have several months of upfront work that we have to do before we can even get started on doing the maintenance project. So again, typically we don't, they don't carry over from year to year. We try to knock them off in that same calendar year.
Dave?
For the benefit of the new people here, when the half-cent sales tax was set aside, we put that into major projects. And you get a major project with like the East Grand Glaze or anything like that. Sometimes the engineering costs can be more than the fixed cost. We weren't getting anything done, so we realized that if we did some stitch in time times maintenance projects on that, we would keep them small, and therefore we wouldn't be getting into these big multi-million-dollar type projects. And so we've developed that expertise within the Town and Country, and it has worked very well for us. So it's actually a very money-making project for Saver, because we don't have to go ahead and have 3 PEs do it and study it for 2 years before we can do any action on it. And Tim does a great job in that. He's got a binder and so forth. So it makes good sense to go ahead and do as many of these things as they occur before they get out of hand.
Thank you. Good information.
Do we have
Any
any kind of an estimate on what you think this is worth, Tim?
So I'm estimating this to be close to $6,000 for work. We've done some similar work in the past. That price may be reduced because one of the contractors we get quotes from now has their own directional bore. We're in past projects, that was always a component that was contracted out with a boring company, which typically significantly added to the price. So I'm actually kind of curious or excited to see what that potential savings may be, but I don't know yet until we request quotes.
Okay.
So Tim, if the bid came in a lot higher than that $7,500 threshold,
yeah,
just for the sake of argument, comes out as $10,000. Does that kick it out of this part of the project and then put it onto the big list of things to get done?
No. So what would occur, because maintenance projects cannot exceed, I believe it's 1% of the overall park and stormwater tax budget, which would allow us to go above the 7,500. But due to our purchasing policy, if we go over 7,500, instead of getting quotes, I then have to publicly bid it. So I would have to do a little bit more legwork on this and create probably more detailed plans, which we could do and then bid that out publicly. But to publicly bid a project that costs $8,000 to do puts in a lot of work for everybody, including the contractor. We try to avoid doing any projects that are going to be 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 in this fashion, just because it's a lot of work for very little payoff and costs additional hours and costs contractors additional legwork and out-of-pocket cost to do a sealed bid. So
just another question then. I'm looking at the picture and it's obviously some level of seepage gets into the curb and it can ice over, et cetera. Sure.
Yeah.
What makes this one any more serious than, I walk around Brynwick and there's probably 4 or 5 homes that constantly have seepage into the curb. It's coming from, I don't know where, it's a downhill slope or whatever. Why is this one worth Town and Country spending good money at it versus dozens of others around the
Good
neighborhood?
question. Yeah.
Well, for that purpose or that instance, I would tell you the difference is that Manderley is a public street and when Brynwick is still private.
Okay.
We had projects similar in fashion to this, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago in Muirfield that addressed drainage on a roadway. And I took it to the commission and the commission said, well, this is a private subdivision. The private subdivision should address the drainage issues on the roadway. I would say anytime we can do a maintenance project, whether it's right-of-way maintenance or stormwater maintenance, that keeps that seepage or drainage off our roadway, which then additionally benefits that property owner from not having that ice in front of their driveway, that helps your street. The less moisture and constant moisture you can keep away from your roadway, your base, your concrete, your freeze and thaw, the better off you're going to be. So again, the pictures that they sent, if you guys can, you see that's a sheet of, that's ice. So we are sub-zero temperatures and there's still flowing water coming out onto that roadway. So what that is doing to the concrete, the subgrade, the asphalt is it's all detrimental to what is a public roadway.
And where is the water coming from? What would the source be?
So there are, if you go to, I think it's page maybe 36 on your PDF
36.
as the aerial, there are retaining walls that are the neighbors' properties that basically surround this 14310 Mandalay. I think the tan roof house probably has a 10-foot tall retaining wall, and you can kind of see the landscape and rock area around the backyard of the house. So all of that drainage, I believe it's from Stifle, from the house to their east, all runs through that kind of shrubbed area along that retaining wall where that drainage box is.
Okay.
One other thing on doing that is that we were only looking at per lot basis, where you have your new construction or whatever you're doing to change a lot, what's it going to do to the lot downstream from you? And we weren't looking at the whole watershed, and it took us a few years to go ahead and look at the whole watershed on anything we did. And so those projects that do it, I got 4 major streams running through Thornhill here, and when Tim does his maintenance projects there, he realizes it involves everybody in the neighborhood and does a great job. So we have a lot more capabilities than we realize, I think, by just doing this in-house.
I think some of these projects too, you have some additional challenges like Mandalay subdivision in general, I don't believe is 1 acre lots. And I think they're slightly smaller than 1 acre lots. And I'm not sure that the 75% green space was in place when the subdivision was built. So you have a lot of impervious on much smaller lots in general in that subdivision. So that adds to some complexity and some issues when you're dealing with the drainage.
Further questions, discussion? I'm seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve the stormwater project on Mandalay Woods?
Motion to approve.
I have Kip approving and Bob seconds the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Mark, did you vote?
Didn't
Are you
vote.
thinking?
I didn't vote on it.
You're thinking? You're torn about? Yep.
I guess I'd say no. I'll say no.
So the ayes have it and got it, Tim?
I got it.
Okay. Okay, so then we're moving on to the next and last item on our new business, which is another stormwater project, 26 Williamsburg Estates.
Okay, so similar condition of property owner cannot reasonably address due to involvement of other parties. The property owner at 6 Williamsburg last year, I think during the August 7th storm event, the area inlet that is the blue box on your aerial was inundated and overwhelmed with the volume of water. The overland flow path was basically diverted around the pool to the sport court, and then there is a set of stairs that goes down to a lower level. So his lower level was inundated after that event. And to assist that property owner, the attached aerial shows the construction access, which is on a neighboring property. And then red is the additional berming of soil to create additional storage or capacity in that area inlet, somewhat of a sump to help lengthen the time that a heavy rain event will take to breach that area. And that is basically the extent of this stormwater maintenance project. It has been conveyed to the property owner that there is additional infrastructure that the property owner probably should install on his own property to protect that stairway that goes down to the lower level. That can be reasonably done by the property owner himself because he can hire a contractor and perform the work. The access and the berm work, though, however, entails the 3 property owners, including 26, which can become outside of that property owner's ability. Again, for some of the newer members, before we do any work on private property for these maintenance projects, we have each party involved, each property owner, provide a contraction of work form stating that they understand the work that is going to be performed, and then a hold harmless against the city for any work that was performed or any results that happen afterwards. So it's essentially a version of kind of like a temporary construction easement. But it is what we use to give us access to pay our contractor to go on private property to do these projects.
Discussion?
Tim, which, generally speaking, which way is that water flowing, from the top of the page down towards that basin?
Yeah, so you
I'm trying to
have,
figure out what the topography is, because I'm not familiar with this one.
yeah, so you have the corner house on Williamsburg that you can kind of see that wraps around. All of that drainage goes to the blue area inlet. And then the other new house that was constructed behind 26 Williamsburg, all of that drainage. And you can see a little bit in the turf change in coloration is kind of channeled towards that area inlet as well. So you have most of what is at the top and right of the page drains towards the area inlet. And then that pipe and infrastructure runs underneath the pool and sport court and continues to the left side of the page. So that is where the overland path and where the water wants to flow if that structure has a catastrophic failure or is inundated to the point that the pipe size, is over capacity.
That's not an MSD pipe, is it?
That is an area inlet. Yeah, it's an MSD pipe.
So all we're doing is building a berm that sort of crisscrosses these 3 properties where they come together to contain the water, to allow the inlet to take the water away over a longer period of time.
Yeah, to help lengthen the time that pipe has to basically convey the water that's in the pipe.
And what do you estimate the cost of this one to be?
This one will probably between $1,500 and $2,000.
Further discussion? Bob, you're
Doesn't sound like much.
Bob's muted. I think he's trying. Yeah, there you go.
So you're not messing with the pipe at all then?
We're not making any modifications to the to the area inlet top or the pipe infrastructure.
Yeah, you're basically building a stormwater basin of such.
Yeah, we're trying. Yeah, the only thing we can do is try to lengthen the storage capacity of that structure during a higher flow event. At some point, though, again, if we have an August 7th event, it will likely breach, and there should be some additional infrastructure work that the homeowner does on the property.
Well, that was my question. Do they know that this is not going to be something
Yeah.
that's going to handle the next deluge?
Yes, and that
26.
that was conveyed, that this will help on a higher percentage of events, but if we get an event like that, there's still it's going to have an overland flow path, or if there's a catastrophic failure, if that pipe during an event becomes completely clogged or collapses for whatever reason, this is only going to divert it or store it for a short period.
Yeah.
So extra infrastructure on the lot itself, which again can be reasonably constructed and or performed by the property owner, wouldn't necessarily qualify for a maintenance project.
Right. Okay.
And is the reason the city's doing it here again because it's 3 adjacent properties as opposed?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm looking at the map and saying the guy at 26 could build a berm himself and keep it on his property.
Yeah, technically that property owner does not have permission to go on any of the other property owners' property. And in these instances, we have this program so that the city can basically play the middleman and, hey, we're going to perform this work. It's not one individual. And then that way, the city's kind of the go-between.
And is there any requirement to notify MSD as we berm up around their inlet?
No, we're not gonna modify or change anything with their infrastructure.
Okay.
So we're just
We'll be
saying,
far enough back, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then I didn't, just to be clear, did the other 2 property owners sign off on giving access to property? Or
they have not as of yet. So we've asked the property owner at 26 Williamsburg just to touch base with their neighbors and put them in contact with the city. So before we will get quotes, and then before anything goes to the Board of Aldermen for PO approval, we have all property owners impacted sign off on the hold harmless and contraction of work form. So if any of the other property owners say, no, we're good, we don't want anything to do with this, then we don't proceed.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve 26 Williamsburg stormwater maintenance project?
Sure, Dave.
Dave and Tom. So Dave first, Tom second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Looks like those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Okay, that is it for our new business items. Just to circle back under the discussion item real quickly, I wanted to circle back to the asphalt conversation. Our city ranks our streets, and Tim, you can jump in here whenever, on the PACER scale. It's that 1 to 10 scale. We haven't conducted that in a couple years, and it is something that we need to budget for. And because we haven't done it in a couple years, I'd like to, Tim, if you could speak to if you put it on your budget, is it worthy of this commission talking about it and discussing, maybe putting a recommendation forward that we think this item should stay on the 2022 budget? Because I understand it's been on the previous budgets, and I don't know how much it costs, but maybe it's one of those easy line items to delete as you're going through the crunch period. And would a recommendation help push that forward, since it's been so many years since we've looked at the conditions of our street. And then when we look at the conditions of our street and we have them ranked, I would like to form a subcommittee of this commission to look at the process and make sure we're all in agreement for whenever that process was established, decades ago or whatever. Is that still the same way we want to maintain an approach going forward?
Mhm.
So anything you can add to those comments, Tim?
So
So I guess the question is, should this commission be talking about putting forth a recommendation on a budgetary item for next year, where we really don't talk about dollars in this commission? So I don't know if that's something we want to explore or not, because then we're asking our commissioners to get involved in the budget making process. So I don't want to cross any lines, but we want to offer support because our roadways need ranked.
yeah, I think the commission in general always provides support for roadway improvements and infrastructure, for our building improvements and infrastructure, stormwater improvements and infrastructure. I think everyone on this commission believes those are probably the top priorities of the city. Obviously, police and fire weigh in there too. But yeah, I don't know if making a recommendation of hiring an intern for X number of dollars.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's overstepping for the commission's.
The commission, yeah. I'm just trying to figure out a way how we support this, and then so the Board of Aldermen have an understanding that this is important, even though it's really not a large expense, right? It's a 4-week project for an intern, and it is something that we need to have happen in 2022. So I'm just wondering if this commission could offer you support in any way, shape, or form. But I'm here, it's sounding like you got this.
I will be significantly more aggressive during our budget discussions if this becomes a talking point of holding off another year. I think we've deferred expenses with vacancies in the Public Works Department for several years since 2019, as far as the director goes. So I think I think we can make that argument or case that, with those lack of hours we've had in that position for as long as we've had an intern for 6 to 8 week period in 2022 is definitely valid and warranted. So
okay, so then in 2022, when we have this intern come in and rank our streets, would that be the time to take that information and then reevaluate the way we approach our roadways in town and country?
Yeah,
with
so
information.
I think again, kind of circling back to some of the comments from Dave about the chip and seal. There are different treatments for roadways, and there are cities that use many different types of applications. They have different standards. I think really the director or the person in charge of the department is going to, is typically going to be the person that says this is what we should do from a city standpoint on our roadways. This is going to give us our best bang for our buck, and this is how we need to proceed. Having the experience that I've had being here for 6 years, utilizing Tom Thousand in our street maintenance, who has been here for 15 years, knowing what our roadways need, what treatments they've had outside of any work that we've done over the last decade. is a really vital resource. Tapping into Tom and knowing what our residents' expectations are. I would tell you that as a private street that is responsible for the maintenance of that street, you probably have a lot more buy-in with a product like chip and seal than you would necessarily on a public street, where that individual homeowners drive on that roadway, but are not necessarily responsible for a 15-way split, depending on how many houses are on what you do on that road. So, the positive feedback that Thornhill may have had with the chip and seal, because they have all parties in that subdivision contributing monetarily to the roadway work, is maybe lessened on, every time I drive for 2 weeks straight, I hear rocks hitting against my car, versus a public street where, we have a zero tax and we're, responsible to maintain those roads. You have a different aesthetic, and you have a different response from those property owners. So we try to factor all that in when we're looking at it. No different than what we used previously with the microsurfacing that, is kind of a 3-year application. And now we're looking more at a Nova chip that isn't a complete overlay that'll give you about 20 years out of your roadway, but maybe get you 10 to 15 years on a good base. So those are all things that we factor in when we're looking at what application we're going to use, what the roadway has. Does it have concrete rolled curb and gutter, vertical curb? Does it have no curb? So all these things kind of factor into our decision making matrix.
Okay, then let me leave it at this. Then as you go through the budget process for the 2022 budget, if for some reason that line item falls off before it reaches the Board of Aldermen, let this commission know. So then if we can discuss whether we want to put forward a recommendation or not before the first review in November and final, it's not final approval, but voting yay or nay for the budget in December.
Sure.
How about that? Okay. That is it for discussion items. Mr. Johnson, I think we'll be diving deeper into the stormwater maintenance piece of our business, but we can talk more about that at our next meeting.
I think my vote on that one back to a yes to make it unanimous.
No. Go ahead, Tim.
So I did have one thing under discussion.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. I just wanted to make an announcement. We have annual Mayors for Meals coming up on May 8th. That's a Saturday from 9 to 12. We will have auctions at City Hall in Longview the week leading up to the 8th. So if anyone has any non-perishable items that would like to donate or drop off for the Meals for Mayors, this will be Dr. Ream's first Mayor for Meals event. They are still looking for volunteers. If anyone wants to sort and or unload vehicles at Town Square, which is where the drop-off will be on Saturday, May 8th from 9 to 12. You can contact Morgan up at City Hall. But if you have any non-perishable stuff that you'd like to donate, you can either do it on the 8th or leading up to it.
Good stuff. And also on that same day is the plant sale over at Longview Farmhouse, I think from 9 to noon. So you can pick up some plants and help out for a good cause, all on the same day.
Yep.
Dave, are you raising or you're on mute? Dave, you're on mute. And Laura, if you muted me, because that dog barking, it wasn't mine, FYI. Somebody else's.
Who's the culprit?
That's
Yeah.
why.
Not me.
You're still on mute, Dave.
And then we got to wrap up, guys, because we have Parks and
Unmute.
Trails
All right,
coming.
now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Unfortunately.
This is a very good group here, and of course, I'm familiar with the engineering aspects and so forth. And one thing that we have to keep in mind, and that is that the Planning and Zoning Commission, on which I was the first member when we got started back in 1983, the state of Missouri requires that a PE be involved with the planning and zoning. And that is a city volunteer, so that you don't have somebody on there that works for the city and therefore can be come under the pressure from the mayor, for instance, and so forth. Well, we have not had that representation on planning and zoning for years. And it shows it, and Bob's nodding his head because this between Bob and myself, we're both PEs, and we actually are much more responsible under the state law and stuff like that for what goes on in the Public Works Commission than the people are in planning and zoning. So for any of you guys there that have any stormwater projects and things like that, and you need the input and you don't have it, where because we don't, other than Tim, who's kind of carrying a heavy load right now, go ahead and talk to Bob and myself, and you'll get the chance to have the engineering input that you're not getting on planning and zoning.
Super.
Thank you, Dave, for that.
Yep.
If that's all on your end, Tim, I'll go ahead and make a motion to close our meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Thank you for tonight's meeting, everyone. Great discussion. And we may see them in May.